financial crimes. People know about them, but they're scared to speak up. So the whistleblower policy actually gives them protection against the consequences of doing the right thing in the public interest. And what it does is it encourages anyone with information about a violation of government's financial regulations, mismanagement of public funds and assets, fraud, financial malpractice, and other associated conduct to report it. It covers disclosure of information leading to the return of Nigeria's stolen or concealed funds and assets.
12,000 Nigerian artisans are to benefit from government enterprise management training as efforts intensify to build a more vibrant economy. At the launch in Abuja, Director General of the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDEN, Diko Umar, said the initiative is part of government's agenda aimed at creating more jobs and combating the economic recession.
The idea of the program is to provide the participant with managerial ability on how to carry on with their entrepreneurship.
Some of them have their own money to start businesses, only they don't have the skills. Some don't have the money, and we have to give them the training.
Over 180 youths from across the 36 states and the FCT are on the way out of poverty. This is courtesy of the new skills they have acquired and a hands-on training in energy efficiency and renewable energy technologies in Abuja. The program was organized by the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs and UN Habitat.
This is a program that is very dear to the heart of Nigeria to ensure that we reduce pollution, we have clean energy, and as well as creating job opportunity for the unemployed.
Most of the people that are here are have not only learned how to use renewable energy resources, that is green economy and green development, but they have been doing the hands-on training, as you can hear. They have been able to build their lamps, solar lanterns. They have been able to build smokeless stoves that saves a lot of energy, that will save deforestation in this country and improve energy use.
The armed forces are set to join the Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System (IPPIS) by the first quarter of 2017. This follows the presidential directive to the Nigeria Police and the military to migrate to the platform. The Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, said this at an IPPIS seminar for Nigerian Army account officers in Abuja.
I directed the immediate steps be taken to ensure the full migration of Nigerian Army payroll in line with the federal government's directives.
Each time recruits are passing out from depot, we capture them from the source. The same thing for officers when being trained, when they are passing out from NTA, collaborate with the IP's department for the full migration.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian Army has debunked the story that troops of Operation Lafayette Dole are ill-treated and not well-fed. This was at a press conference by the theater commander, Operation Lafayette Dole, Major General Lucky Rabo in Maiduguri. He called on the media to shun negative and misguided publications, adding that the Nigerian Guild of Editors and the Nigerian Union of Journalists should always defend the nation's security interests.
Let me say that during this period, that is 14th to 21st, just to speak for 1 week, a total of 1,880 civilians were rescued from the Boko Haram terrorist enclave. Similarly, between the same period, a total of 564 Boko Haram terrorist members were arrested, while 19 others surrendered to our troops.
The federal government has declared Monday 26th, Tuesday 27th December 2016 and Monday 2nd January 2017 as public holidays to mark the Christmas, Boxing Day and New Year 2017 celebrations respectively. Minister of Interior Lieutenant General Abdulrahman Ambazao enjoined Christians and Nigerians in general to remain committed and supportive of the Buratai administration in its efforts to build a peaceful, united and prosperous nation. General Ambazao also urged Nigerians to use the occasion to pray for the peace, unity and peaceful coexistence in the country. The minister wishes all Nigerians at home and abroad a Merry Christmas and prosperous New Year 2017. The newly elected Totir V, Professor James Ayati, has prayed to God to lead him in carrying out the administration of the Chief Traditional Council. He said this shortly after meeting with the Benue State Governor, Samuel Otom, at Government House, Makurdi.
I'm grateful to God to be given the opportunity to render service. I do acknowledge that God will be the king over the chief nation. I will simply be a servant doing his own will.
This is the new beginning of better things to happen to the chief nation and demonstrate in general.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has congratulated Professor James Ayati on his election as Totir, the paramount ruler of the Tiv people. A statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Additional, indicates that the President believes that Professor Ayati's emergence as the paramount ruler of the Tiv people is an affirmation of his strength of character, integrity, and moral authority garnered over the years as a lecturer, erudite scholar, and administrator. The Nigerian Labour Congress NLC has directed its councils nationwide to monitor the receipt and utilization of the refund of the Paris debt deductions by states. A statement by the General Secretary of the NLC, Dr. Peter Ozo-Esson, says the Congress has noticed the disbursement of the refund of the Paris debt deductions made to states, which it pointed out represents a major injection of funds into the coffers of the state governments. According to the NLC, the federal government guideline in releasing these funds stipulates that at least 50% of the receipts should be applied to the payment of salary arrears and pensions. The monitoring by the councils, NLC states, is to ensure compliance by state governments. Abuja, Nigeria's federal capital city, will today join Jos, the Plateau State capital, as the second city in the country to switch over from analog to digital TV broadcasting. The National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, says all is now set for the launch of the digital switch on from analog to digital broadcast transmission in Abuja. Director General of NBC, Malam Ishak Modibo Kawu, stated this during a press conference in Abuja.
As we move to Abuja, we are committed to increasing the status. We shall be offering 30 television channels in Abuja. This will cover entertainment, sports, news, movies, etc. About 200,000 set-top boxes have been effectively distributed at the various distribution centers across Abuja, with an additional 450,000 waiting to be distributed from the date of switch on.
And then there will be interactivity. That means they can interact with each of the content providers on the platform. The set-top box converts digital signal being received through the platform to analog signal for your analog TV to be able to discern.
It was an atmosphere of joy, cheerfulness, and fun when the NTA headquarters chapel Abuja held its annual Christmas carol.
And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because it was of the house and lineage of David.
So I guess yes you are, mighty God. Come on, we're in the mood of worship. Walk upon the city, Jerusalem, in your majesty, mighty God. Well, everything about you is good. Come on.
Convicted former Delta State Governor James Ibori has been released from prison in the United Kingdom. Ibori was sentenced by a UK court to 13 years in prison for money laundering and corruption charges. Reports say he was released having agreed to be deported after serving half of his 13-year sentence. Well, that's the news for now. It's back. We'll get back to Claire and Kingsley to continue with Newsline after this break. Good morning.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words. Run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Hello dear, you've got the first signs of a sore throat.
Yes, and I'm afraid it could be signs of a sore throat.
Don't you worry, just act immediately, but not with non-medicated throat sweets. Take an expert product, take Strepsils. Look at what it does to sore throat germs compared to a throat sweet. Strepsils not only stops the germs from multiplying, it even kills them.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, sore throat. Stop a sore throat early. Take Strepsils.
Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, oh the ruler. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
All right, you're right on time for the business news, and in it, expert warns on dangers of globalization to developing economies. And Nigeria is to host the continent's infrastructure summit. We have details with Leah Katun Babatunde.
Globalization has been said to be the driving force of growth and development, removing barriers and boundaries, thereby creating tighter inter-sovereign relationships. However, Professor Eric Maskin of Harvard University and co-recipient of the 2007 Nobel Prize on Economics says globalization is accelerating inequality instead of reducing it. Maskin called for greater skills education and training to provide people, usually in rural agricultural areas, with the means to enable them to find jobs in agro-industry. In a presentation in Abuja, Maskin spoke about income inequality in developing countries bolstered by globalization.
Particular globalization is different from earlier globalizations in that it's not only goods and services which are being traded across international boundaries, but the production process itself has been internationalized.
In theory, said Maskin, exactly the opposite should have happened. However, developing countries, he said, are rich in unskilled labor. And when a country embarks in international trade, it tends to specialize in goods which make use of skilled labor. For this reason, Maskin argued governments need to get involved in skills training and education. Nigeria is set to host the next edition of the Infrastructure Summit come March 2017. Infrastructure plays a critical role in growth, competitiveness, job creation, and poverty alleviation. The International Finance Corporation estimates that over 600 million Africans still do not have access to modern energy, and the penetration rate for internet is less than 10%, while only a quarter of Africa's road network is paved. Access to basic infrastructure services remains a critical challenge in Africa, with studies showing that poor roads, rail and port facilities add 30% to 40% to the cost of goods traded among African countries, thus adversely affecting private sector development and the flow of foreign direct investment. The summit is expected to highlight the need to scale up infrastructure investments across the continent by mobilizing international and domestic financial resources, as well as drawing on current case studies and exploring new solutions in project finance in order to fast-track infrastructure investments. Nigeria is currently in possession of between 17 to 25% of infrastructure stock required, a far cry from the expected 70 to 75% comfort region. Government has been working to improve this rating for increased job opportunities. The March 2017 summit is designed to provide a unique high-level platform to convene and engage African leaders, business persons, investors, regulators, and policymakers to bring about new solutions to transform African infrastructure. And lastly, speculation ahead of the holidays have seen the Nigerian Stock Exchange record 3 days of losses in a row. In the midweek session, the all-share index lost 0.46%. Next is a graphic summary. With business news, I'm Lekating Babatunde.
All right, thank you very much there, Leah Katung Babatunde. And it's still Good Morning Nigeria, and we are reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're taking a short break now. When we return from the break, it will be time for us to take a look at the headlines in some of today's newspapers.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Nigeria joins the rest of the world in going digital. This means Nigeria is moving from analog terrestrial TV broadcasting to digital. Now, digital broadcasting gives you clearer pictures, crystal clear sound, and a chance for more channels and more shows to watch. Digital TV is a whole new experience for you and a rich harvest of digital information. Come on, Nigeria going digital. Nigeria going digital. Going digital. Calling to Abuja.
Junwa is the Olympic champion.
We did it before and we can do it again with the new strategy through the first National Grassroots Sports Festival scheduled for Abuja, Nigeria from 22nd to 29th April 2017 to prepare Nigeria to win medals in international sporting events. The world rollout is scheduled for 20th of December 2016 at the Africa International Investment Summit and Expo at Sheraton Abuja Hotel. The Save the Life Charity Golf Tournament is scheduled for 18th of December 2016 at IBB International Golf and Country Club Abuja. NTA, the largest television network in Africa, is the broadcast partner. For sponsorship, contact the Chairman Chief Coordinator on 0809 647 0111 or Mukta on 080 330 20855. Email info@grassrootssportsfestival.com. The Grassroots Sports Festival is endorsed and in partnership with the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development.
right, and it's newspaper review, and Bayo Atege is in the house. Bayo, good morning.
Good morning, Claire. Good morning, Kensley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, let's begin our review this morning with the Leadership newspaper, a lead story that we also have on the front pages of some other publications. We've also taken it in our news bulletin. Expose corruption, get 5% recovered loot. Federal government promises whistleblowers a new policy. And it has to ride out to launch anti-corruption portal. Details of that story can be found on page 5 of the Leadership. Now, above that, but below the nameplate, NNPC lifts 461 billion naira accrued in 21 months. And PM Vice President Muhammadu Buhari and Autumn congratulate new Tortiv. And below the lead headline, you have Amosu offsets 12.5 billion naira workers' gratuities. And at the foot of the front page of the Leadership, 2 headlines. German calls ECOWAS bluff, vows to remain in office. Details of that story on page 5. And on page 10, in greater detail, there's a story with the headline, 97 graduate from Amnesty's Agric training scheme. Claire.
All right, Kingsley. And the New Telegraph leads with a story. Britain demands 7 billion naira before Ibori's deportation. Britain demands 7 billion naira before Ibori's deportation. And it comes with 2 riders there. Ex-governor freed from prison, put under house arrest. Details of that on page 2. And Delta Agog as kinsmen, political associates jubilate. And there you see a picture story of the former Delta State Governor, James Ibori, with an associate after his release from prison in London yesterday. And the other side is, of course, Ibori with friends and associate also. Now, trending at the bottom, Army arrest 504 Boko Haram suspects, rescues 1,880 women, children in Sambisa forest. And just trending stories, just below the nameplate, Rivers rerun, INEC probes officials over bribery. And Malibu scandal, EFCC out for revenge, says Adoke. And $1.3 million cash recovered in arms panel members' home. And this is coming from the AGF. And FIFA writes New Telegraph justifies stoppage of grants to NFF. And of course, the last story coming from the New Telegraph, taken just above the nameplate, FEC, I beg your pardon, approves cash reward for whistleblowers. And that's the outlook of the New Telegraph. Bio.
Let me start with the whistleblowing incentive. Any individual who volunteers credible, reliable information on stolen funds may stand the chance of benefiting between 2.5% or 5% of the sum of the money, but when it is recovered. There are also conditions attached to it. This has to be information on violation, misconduct, and that impacts on Nigeria's economy. And it has to be information that is already not in the public domain and that couldn't be obtained from any public office. However, anybody who volunteers such information will also be protected. On the other hand, if the information you give is found to be false, then you also stand liable. The Minister for Finance, Kemi Adeosun, did this brief after the Federal Executive Council, and she got approval for this incentive. Talking about corruption, the reports indicate that Chief James Ibori got a temporary respite yesterday as the Royal Court of Justice London ordered his rescue from Hutch Court Prison. However, his people in Ogara, Moga, Sapele and other areas in Etiop west of Delta have been in anticipatory ceremonial mood. They have been rejoicing. In anticipation, Mogara, roundabouts around his home area in Ogara have been decorated in anticipation of his return. It may be recalled that James Ibori was convicted by South Crown Court in Britain on April 17, 2012 for money laundering. He had pleaded guilty to a 10-count charge and he was sentenced to 13 years imprisonment. Now, is he a hero or a villain? One chief, Irene Emani, says his release is long awaited. And my support for him is not about supporting corruption, no. But his incarceration was political, and the sponsors were corrupt. Corruption itself personified. And another one says that his release is like a festival for all the Urubu people. But meanwhile, he is not totally free now because he has to be confined to what has been described as a house arrest pending the confiscation hearing that is coming up in January. The Home Secretary does not intend to get him deported back to Nigeria until he hands over 18 million pounds proceeds of the crime for which he was charged. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced.
All right, Bayo, thanks. Let's go over now to the Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint has as its lead story, the headline, Kaduna crisis, that's the kicker. Mob attacks Air Rufai's convoy. And governor cautions on reprisal and imposes curfew. And end killings in northern states, ACF tells federal government. Now you can see the official vehicle there of the Kaduna state governor after it was attacked by a mob. You can see part of the window there has been shattered. One of the damaged cars during the attack yesterday. And then also below the photograph, you have other headlines. 1,400 workers on Yari's neck, over 32 months unpaid salaries. Details of that story on page 15. Don't borrow to celebrate Christmas, Khan urges Nigerians. And federal government posts 47 new ambassadors and a Bureau released from London prison. Also there, my trial vendetta, that's according to Adoke, former Justice Minister. Expose corruption, make money. Federal government, details of that on page 7. And at the foot of the front page, you have the public holidays that have been declared by the federal government. Details of the story on page 8.
Okay, Councillor, just before I take Daily Trust, there's a story on the inside page of the New Telegraph. It's on page 9, and it reads, Woman forges CP's stamp, rakes in 5 million naira from Ford. Woman forges CP's stamp, rakes in 5 million naira from Ford. Now that's quite sad there. And there's also another story on the same paper. It says airlines seek NCAA and IATA's help over crew poaching. Crew poaching, Bayo. But before you respond,
yeah, Bayo, let me just take these other headlines so you take them along with your comments. The Authority newspaper. The Authority newspaper above the nameplate has one headline, one of 3 headlines. We're taking one of them. The Authority. Southeast senators to boycott Buhari's meeting in Enugu. That's on page 2. And list story says, federal government restarts 130 billion naira second Niger Bridge project, plans alternative sources of funding. Second list story says, Rivers rerun, Wike sets up commission to probe killings.
Two quick stories. 504 Boko Haram suspects have been arrested, and there's 1,880 women and children also released. Among these, 19 of them surrendered willfully, while they have found 37 officers. It's part of the onslaught of the Operation Lafia Dole to rout out Sambisa forest. There's also the report about Governor El Rufai of Kaduna being pestered with stones in Kafanchan. Actually, there was a curfew in Kafanchan on Monday. He visited on Tuesday with the hope of convening a security meeting. 3 women approached him, asked questions, he entertained them. But later in the day, the home of the local government chairman was torched and burnt, and his convoy was also stoned. He says that is the burden of leadership. President Yahya Jammeh is still in the news. He says that I am a man of peace, but I'm not a coward. I will defend myself, defend my country courageously, patriotically, and win. He was reacting to what he described as interference by leaders in West Africa in the affairs of the Gambia. The United Nations has also indicated that on January 19th, he has to hand over to Barrow as stipulated by the Gambia Constitution.
I must round off this review here at this moment. But the Gambia still remains an ECOWAS, a member of the ECOWAS Commission.
Yes, he is, because he was in fact part of the ECOWAS heads of states and government that took decision to deal with Guinea-Bissau, which was a coup trying to overthrow the government. So the shoe now is on the other foot.
All right, Bayo, thank you very much for coming, and we wish you success in the switch over.
Yes.
Digital switch.
Actually, it was going to be a double elimination. It doesn't mean that the current analog will be switched off. No. The incoming digital will go simultaneously with the analog, pending the time that gradually the analog will be switched off.
All right, we'll get to hear more about that later on in the program. It's part of the subjects for our conversation this morning. And of course, like we said earlier on, we have 3 issues to deal with. First, we'll be looking at the, of course, crisis in Guinea-Bissau and the Gambia. But first, let's begin with the Gambia. Now, the political impasse in that country, of course, has generated quite a lot of international comments. To set our conversation, Omotala Mojola put together this background report.
The refusal of the Gambian President Yahya Jammeh to relinquish power to the President-elect Adama Barrow after his December 1 victory at the polls has become a source of anxiety locally and to the international community. Yahya Jammeh, who has held power in the Gambia for 22 years, took over after a military coup in 1994 and transited into a democratically elected president in 1996. He has also been returned into office in 2001, 2006 and 2011. It will be recalled that Yahya Jammeh surprised the world by conceding defeat to Barrow on December 2nd, a day after the election and just before the results were announced, only to rescind his decision a week later on December 9. He's also filed a case with the country's Supreme Court citing irregularity in the election and calling for a fresh poll. The action has, however, been trailed by condemnation from many quarters across the world. The Gambia's Electoral Commission insists that, though it made some mistakes in the tally, the outcome remains unchanged, with Adama Barrow as the winner at the polls with 227,708 votes to Jammeh's 208,487. To ensure that the mandate of Gambians is protected, the ECOWAS chair, Ellen Johnson-Sirleaf of Liberia, led a delegation comprising Ghanaian President John Mahama and Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari on an intervention mission to pressure Jammeh to relinquish power. The mission, however, met a brick wall. The date for the inauguration of a new government in the Gambia is January 19, 2017, and ECOWAS, the regional body, has requested all member heads of state to attend the event. Whether Gambia will have Adama Barrow as a new president on January 19, 2017, or have Yahya Jammeh continue in office will be determined in the days and weeks ahead. Also to be discussed is a political impasse in Guinea-Bissau, which has defied resolution in the past 4 years and seems to be getting more complex by the day.
All right, Mojola, thank you very much there for that background report. Now we have guests to discuss this development, both, of course, in the Gambia as well as in Guinea-Bissau, as we indicated earlier. First, joining us at this time is the Commissioner, Political Affairs, Peace and Security of ECOWAS, Hajia Halima Ahmed. Hajia Halima, it's a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, and then of course we also have with us here our regular analyst and guest, former Permanent Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi. Ambassador Keshi, a pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning.
Okay.
Compliments.
All right.
Also, Kingsley, we have joined us from our Lagos Network Center, a former Director General of the Nigeria Institute of International Affairs, Professor Bola Akinterewa. Professor Akinterewa, it's a pleasure, always a pleasure to have you on our program.
In Nigeria. Thank you.
Kingsley?
Yeah, let's grow.
All right, let me start, of course, with, it's a general question. We want to know if it's possible, like the ECOWAS chairperson said, you know, at the last summit of heads of government, heads of state and government, so he did say that this could be resolved peacefully before January 19. Hajia, is it possible?
Yes, it is possible. It is possible because we are, first of all, there's commitment and commitment on the parts of all the member states, and they are all speaking with one voice. that the issue in the Gambia must be addressed quickly and peacefully. And we're deploying all our instruments, the normative instruments governing such a process. So it is
possible. On the part of ECOWAS.
On the part of ECOWAS, okay. And the international community too, because we are all together in this.
Okay.
All right. Well, Ambassador Keshi, what's your reaction to the optimism expressed by Hajia Halima? Again, listening to President Yahya Jammeh insisting that he wouldn't quit and that the 19th January will not be realized, in the sense that you wouldn't have the new president sworn in on that day. Is there a basis for optimism?
I will go with Hajj for now. On the basis of the reaction of President Jammeh, we should be a little bit less optimistic, in the sense that he's going to stall as long as possible. But I think the good thing here, as you rightly pointed out, is that ECOWAS has taken a very firm stand. The AU is behind the ECOWAS decision, and I think that it will also be very easy to get the United Nations support. All I think they need to do now is to deploy, as you rightly pointed out, the instruments they have. One of the things I would have loved to see immediately after the meeting was for a delegation or an envoy to have been appointed to be the negotiator between Jammeh and the rest, because I just think that Jammeh is going to continue to hold on for as long as he can. And we should also reach out to his main supporters, his main backers, like Saudi Arabia and Morocco. And of course, his Marabas as well. They play important, I believe they play important role in this issue too. All those who, in the first instance, convinced him to reverse the decision, we should reach out to them. And I sincerely hope that when ECOWAS machinery is eventually deployed, that these fellows will bring into the circle of those they will talk to.
Okay, let's get the reaction of Professor Akintayowa from Lagos. Prof, when President Jammeh conceded defeat and indeed congratulated Mr. Barrow, Ambassador Joe Keshi was here in the studio and he described the situation. I'm going to quote him. Ambassador Keshi said, "It's a welcome shock." Now, there was an element of skepticism in his remarks, and it was proved right. Now, again, ECOWAS is expressing optimism that this can be resolved before January 19. Do you share in that optimism as well?
Not at all. One, we can easily argue that there is commitment. But the question must be asked immediately. Commitment to what? It's not sufficient to have commitment. It is not known in history where order and counter-order, all right, will not amount to disorder. The situation in the Gambia is that of order and counter-order. So the commitment that can exist, it can only be a commitment to disorder. What are we talking about? Ambassador Keshi rightly pointed out that the ECOWAS has taken a firm decision that amounts to an order. Now we have Yahya Jammeh, who says, no, I have complaints that the election appear to have been characterized by what he called serious abnormalities. But the African leaders, the ECOWAS leaders, the United Nations and the African Union that we give backing to the ECOWAS have refused to investigate the abnormalities. Now that is counter order. There's no way any mediator who already has a partisan position, and which we all know in international law, cannot be possible when you are going to be a mediator when you are engaging in reconciliation, you are engaging in mediation, you are not supposed to be partisan. Now we have ECOWAS that is going to mediate, and ECOWAS already has a partisan position. Then, what type of commitment will lead to a solution? But if we look at it from the other side, is it possible? Yes, it can be possible if that commitment is predicated on objectivity of purpose, on sincerity of purpose. Because there are two major problems in the position of the ECOWAS as of today. Now, the ECOWAS sent a delegation comprising the chairperson of the ECOWAS authority, Salim Johnson. We have the Ghanaian leader, the Sierra Leonean leader, and Nigeria's national leader, Buhari. 4-man delegation. The delegation went to the Gambia to seek, objective mediation, quote and unquote. But the chairman, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission herself was never invited, to the meeting to find out if, for instance, there was sincerity and objectivity of purpose, ultimate objective of seeking enduring solution to the problem. One, they should have invited the head of the Electoral Commission to be part and parcel of their meeting, get a briefing, and then decide that, okay, go and look at the complaints of Jammeh. But the issue is that at the end of the day, nobody wants to look at the complaints of Jammeh. It is true Jammeh has been there for 22 years. There's no disputing that fact. But the ECOWAS leaders must not look aside and presume that Jammeh does not have legitimate complaints until the complaints are set aside, that they are not genuine. And finally on that, look at the statement of Ban Ki-moon. Look at the statement of Ibn Chambers, former ECOWAS Executive Secretary, President ECOWAS Commission. He did say, and I quote, Jammeh will be strongly sanctioned, quote and unquote, strongly sanctioned. He added, under no circumstance should Yahya Jammeh continue as from January 19, 2017. This is a manu militari statement. Now they are telling a sitting president. So when you have the order of the UN, AU, ECOWAS on the one hand, and the counter order of Yahya Jammeh, who is still controlling the military, 22 years of military support for him, then that counter order, we must expect disorder. So there cannot be any resolution of the conflict peacefully. And you rightly pointed out, Kingsley, that the Supreme Court to which a complaint had been referred, we only have one, justice available, 7 required. Now, 1 out of 7, how do you go about it? So when you look at all these points put together, it is very easy to dream. Very easy to dream. But where will the dream lead to? So I submit here respectfully that I cannot see from all available data how ECOWAS or anybody can resolve the problem peacefully, unless they want to factor in sincerity of purpose.
Well, Professor Bola Akintola, thank you very much there for your position. But I think that your position has in fact provoked more questions with regard to the principal thesis that you are propounding. Let me just ask this question straight away before I come back to the guests with us here in the Abuja studios. When you say that ECOWAS is intervening on a partisan basis, did you expect ECOWAS not to stand with the constitution of the people of the Gambia, and therefore with the terms and conditions of the operation of the ECOWAS Commission itself, or ECOWAS Authority? That's one leg of it. And second leg, to what extent would you allow in the 21st century an African leader, a West African leader for that matter, to continue to ride roughshod over the constitution of his country and therefore of the various institutions that are deemed to operate, the democracy, whatever tenor it is, in that environment?
Thank you for the two questions. And I must thank you because the questions enable me to reposit what had always been ignored. Interference. The argument of Jame that ECOWAS is interfering is not tenable at one level, because the Constitutive Act of the African Union has redefined that. In fact, nobody is talking about interference, non-interference anymore. We are talking about non-intervention. All right? And that non-intervention, in its redefinition, is simply that the ECOWAS, the AU members can intervene when there is the need for that. And that was why, for instance, the principle of subsidiarity had to be adopted, meaning that the 5 regions of the African Union must first of all intervene in regional issues, address them. And it is only when the regional organizations are unable to find a enduring solution that the issues can be referred to the continental level. So, meaning that at the end of the day, I do not share the viewpoint of President Jame. But when he's talking about interference in the context of electoral politics here, it should be understood from the perspective that we have a regional body, the ECOWAS, now, which has consciously decided not to look at complaints, whether legitimate or illegitimate. What Yaya has said is that, look, I put it in interrogative form. Why did Jame accept defeat ab initio? He considered defeat to Barrow. He considered. But later development had it that now he's reneging. The question now again is, why is he reneging? So the problem to address is at the level of the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission said in his first report that Barrow won with 45%, and that Jame had 36.7% of the votes cast. Monday had about, well, the rest, about 17-18%. Jame accepted. No worry. But when the Electoral Commission now discovered that there were electoral computations that were not correct, to the extent now that it came with a new report saying that Barrow did not win with 45%. All right? Now coming to about 43 point something percent. So something might have gone to the brain, to the cerebrum of Jame to say, look, why do we have these frauds? Why are we having these problems? And he lodged complaint. The logical thing to do for ECOWAS leaders in terms of objectivity of purpose is to say, okay, let us see the merit of the argument. I am not saying that sit-tightism, all right, sit-tight leaders is should be condoned against constitution. That's not what we are saying. But if there is any complaint by any leader, please, before you crucify him, look at the complaints first. We are dealing with international politics of the election, not the ECOWAS politics. ECOWAS leaders generally are towing international politics in taking their decisions in many intra-African issues. So this is the issue. International community is against Jame on many points.
All right, Professor Akintayewa, thank you for your position. But let's come down to the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security. Gadja, you've listened to Professor Akintayewa. He's made, serious issues. One, ECOWAS partisan position. But let's take the issue of interference first, which President Jammeh, accused ECOWAS leaders of. According to ECOWAS Protocol on Good Governance, when might it be deemed, when is an intervention deemed to be an interference?
Well, by the provisions of the protocol, you have different scenario for that triggers the mechanism for ECOWAS to interfere. One is gross abuse of human rights. The other, of course, in this case, is a combination of that and, of course, the election results, where the will of the people has been clearly declared that this is the leader they want. And so ECOWAS is behind the people. The leaders of ECOWAS are behind the Gambian people. And that is what I think the leaders are focusing on. I will just answer his question that the ECOWAS heads of state did not really
appoint a mediator.
There is a mediator in the person of our President Muhammadu Buhari. He is the chair of the mediation committee of two, and the co-chair is the current president, John Dramani Mahama of Ghana. The other issue that the professor raised is that the heads of state, the four heads of states who went in, they went in to consult, and they consulted all the parties, including the chairman of the Electoral Commission, who explained to them exactly what happened. And what happened? What happened was that when he proclaimed the first sets of results, obviously there was a winner in the person of Barrow. Now, that was a preliminary declaration. Now, the final declaration, they discovered that there was some miscalculation somewhere, which they corrected. But that did not change the outcome of the results. That is the main thing. It did not change. And they had consultation. They spent the whole day, the heads of state spent the whole day in Banjul. They consulted not only Jammeh, the Barrow himself, the coalition members, the Electoral Commission chairman, but also even the chief of staff, the army, who told them clearly that he abides by the constitution of Liberia, which we are all happy about. Of Gambia, sorry, of the Gambia. Yeah, so.
Okay, well, let's, Ambassador Joe Kashi, I know you've listened to the comments by Professor Bola Akintayewa, that this would appear to fly in the opposite direction of your propositions. What's your reaction?
I think some of his arguments are very flawed, but I grant the distinguished professor his viewpoint. The commissioner has clearly indicated, what transpired in Banjul. The only problem I have with what transpired in Banjul, that I would have been happier if ECOWAS delegation has included the president of Senegal, for many reasons, but I let that be. As you rightly explained, a win is a win, even if it's by 1%. The people of the Gambia voted, And the Electoral Commission, at the end of the day, has a right to adjust the figures. And if the figures still indicate that the winner is still the winner, Jamil is bound by everything you can think of to accept the will of the people. There's no argument about that. Now, whether ECOWAS came into, ECOWAS is intervening because Jamil has indicated that he's not going to leave come January 19 or thereabout. So this is clearly the difference between, look, if the electoral body has said, oh, they made a mistake, and it is now, let's just say, 35-35, and Jamil said it's not going, I think that we can understand this viewpoint. But where the results still show that the winner, the commission was right in declaring the winner, and that at the end of the adjustment of all the results, that Barrow is still the winner. Jamil has no point. Absolutely no point.
He said he was not consulted when the votes were recounted.
He was not supposed to be consulted, for goodness sake.
He doesn't run the commission.
It's like saying that, if there's a dispute about whether you scored a goal or not, the player should be consulted to say, did you take the shot? No. There's no need for consultation. The power to declare an election and election result is vested in the commission. And the commission did its job. Pure and simple. So this...
If I can come in there.
Yes, ma'am.
Moreover, the party representatives signed the declaration, signed the results after the second counting. They all signed, they all appended their signatures to it. Those are the representatives of, Jamil's party was there, and his own party representative signed.
But what appears to be playing out now, let us assume for the purpose of this discussion, because the stories are out there in the public domain, that the outgoing or incumbent President Yahya Jammeh truly has a case. And it says, listen, I want to fight this out. But we also understand that the judiciary is hamstrung because you have a Supreme Court that doesn't have its full complement. What does that portend? Is it going for broke? And if it's going for broke, in your opinion, where does this leave ECOWAS? I mean, are you going to keep mediating, negotiating, petting, and cajoling him until the country descends again into some chaotic scene, as we have seen from time to time on the West Coast?
That is what ECOWAS is trying to avoid, and that is why it appointed a mediator. And the mediator is not just sitting, he's consulting, talking with all the parties. And ECOWAS has shown that this thing has to end by 18th January 2017. And the president-elect to be inaugurated, and they will all attend on the 19th of January 2017. That's a clear signal to you as to what ECOWAS is determined to do. The steps it is going to take, of course, we are going to follow the provisions of our normative instruments, and of course in conjunction with the AU that have already expressed strong support, and the United Nations. And we are taking it step by step, consultation, mediation, and then the last resort, of course, will be what we have in our protocols.
Okay, now that ECOWAS has urged all heads of state and government to attend the inauguration in January, Yahya Jammeh has said, well, has warned West African leaders by way of his complaints of interference. Mm-hmm. Might ECOWAS force its way to Banjul?
I think that is the signal.
All right, Ambassador Keshi, well, let's take a look again at some of the diplomatic options that might be available. Is Yahya Jammeh sufficiently...
Remember my head of state said, the president of my commission said, if all fails, there will be use of force. If everything else fails.
The commission said all options are on the table.
All options are open, are on the table.
All options are open. That's the question I was actually going to ask Ambassador Joe Keshi. Yeah. Does Yahya Jammeh realize the array of diplomatic forces against him, raised against him at this time? and what other options, might be available. I mean, this country is, with the greatest respect to the country of the people, virtually a banana republic.
Let's go back to Gaddafi, or let's go back to Gbagbo. When you have leaders with that kind of mindset, they tend to generally ignore the forces. They are the very few that I see, almost all reasonable people will see a train coming and actually jump out of the rail. But people like Jamel and co would definitely want to stay, till the end. If they don't give a damn if they are crushed by the, by the rail. But for me, I think the fundamental thing we need to bear in mind here is that in an age in which we are all saying that, look, no matter its weaknesses and failures, we've accepted democracy as a way of life in this continent. We are prepared to encourage it. We are prepared to promote it. And that once the people have decided on who they want to lead them, we must allow the system itself to, to progress or to process as much as possible. The fundamental thing is that there's nothing wrong with the Electoral Commission making a proclamation, after the initial result, deciding the final result. Number one, there's nothing wrong about that. Jamel is free to protest and go to court. But the Constitution also allows the fact that you have this set of judges, they are not in place, and they cannot be in place before January 19 because he's not going to appoint them. So that shows you clearly that this man is not prepared to leave. That also shows you that, as I said, I think the last time, and thanks for, the danger about talking to journalists is that they keep reminding you of what you said, I've always believed that Jamel changed its mind after he's consulted, with his people. Because sometimes it's not only the leader that makes this decision. I even go so far to argue in our own case that if President Jonathan, as he rightly said the other day, has waited for 5 hours more for the results to be declared, there are those who will be with him saying, don't give up, challenge the result. As a matter of fact, the governor told me when we discussed, he said, it's only President Jonathan that does not go to court. So that tells you that we have, Jamel had the same people around him who are not happy that their power and influence over the last 20 years is disappearing. So they're going to try and make a stand, if it's the last stand. And it's left to ECOWAS, to ensure that they keep faith with what they have agreed upon. The only what I was trying to say in terms of sending, they need on the ground mediator. The head of states have decided, they've appointed their own committee. They need now to put somebody on the ground interfacing between the two parties to ensure that Jamel completely understands what the commission wants to do and the array of forces against him.
All right, Ambassador. Professor Akintayewa, now the signal coming out from the Gambia now will probably leave ECOWAS and international partners with no option other than to apply the use of force. Now, might you have a different, approach, to this whole issue, a different diplomatic approach to this whole issue?
Well, you see, whoever is seeking peace and is looking at peace from the perspective of von Clausewitz, who argued, if you are looking for peace, you prepare for war. Then the end point is well known. Certainly, we are going to have a situation of war. And why we are having this type of war is simply because people are dealing, even analytically, with hypotheses. We refuse to look at the situational reality on the ground. For instance, while Ambassador Keshi can easily argue that no, an argument is not able, is flawed, all we need to do is to look at it chronologically. I still insist that the ECOWAS delegation, as distinct from the ECOWAS Mediation Committee, which I refer to, all right, had a partisan position. It's on record. The records are there. When did Ibn Shaban make his point? When did Ban Ki-moon make his point? You see, by the time someone is saying, under no circumstance will he be there from January 19, 2017, and the ECOWAS delegation was just on his way to go and consult. Please, this is the point I am trying to draw attention to. And Ambassador Kechi was right in his diagnosis of the attitudinal disposition of Jammeh. Jammeh is not very likely to submit. He will prefer to die. Although he can argue hypothetically that he had consulted with some people, and probably as a result of that, he changed position. The research on ground has it that Jammeh, immediately he discovered that the margin of defeat in terms of percentage votes was not a big deal. He began to suspect that something might have gone wrong. And that was why he was asking for a God-fearing electoral commission to revisit the problem. So what we are saying is that in this type of situation, and I will answer your question now directly, is there any alternative to it, to avoiding war? Yes, of course. When there is a complaint, please, for God's sake, address the complaint, disabuse his mind, and then let the whole world know that, look, Jammeh, you are wrong. In spite of the fact that there is a recorrection, Barrow has won. But the issue is that Jammeh does not believe that it is really true, especially if he listens to what commentaries are made internationally. And I can bet this international community we are talking about, this United Nations, when there is a dog battle to be done in the Gambia today, the same international community will be divided. Afterwards, Ambassador Kechi also rightly pointed out, some, he pointed out only to the many of them. We have Saudi Arabia, Morocco backing. All right? Libya, what happened to Libya? Gaddafi. He sustained the battle to the last point. But what are the implications? Innocent lives die. I am saying that Jammeh is still in perfect control of his very small army. The army is still actively committed to him. 22 years. So at the end of the day, we are now going to have another form of ECOMOG in the Gambia, ECOMOG 3, etc. Unless we address his own complaints, then it will not be fair.
I'm wondering, Professor Bola Akintayo, some of the points that you have articulated, are you suggesting, for instance, that having contested the election as a candidate, that President Yahya Jammeh should now seek to either overrule or override the decision of the Electoral Commission? And if so, why didn't Jammeh himself conduct the election? That's one leg. Second leg, you sketch a conflict scenario. You also touched on, rightly, the size of the Gambian army. Is this an army that can withstand the use of force by other parties?
Let me start with the second question. An army can be strong. The Gambian army can be as strong as the American army. I will now ask you, which is stronger, Nigerian army or the Boko Haram army? What can a very strong army do with guerrilla? You see, I'm dealing with the practical dimensions of the issues. No matter how small, how weak the Gambian army may be, If it turns into guerrilla warfare, in which case you now have even non-uniformed army, you now have enemy of the people, enemy of the state, now throwing bombs here and there. Please, there will not be any rest, any peace, even for the ECOWAS troops that will be going there. That is the issue. So it is not that I am saying that the Gambian army will be strong enough to withstand even Nigerian army alone, not even a coalition of forces. How many people inhabit the Gambia? What's the population? It's not a big deal. All right, I'm not saying that. Then, the other question as to whether I am saying Jammeh should overrule, far from it. I can tell you that the strongest enemy of Jammeh is Bola Akitenewa as an individual. I do not accept any president in Africa who cannot do his best within 2 terms or 4 years. If you cannot do your best within 8 years, there is no likelihood that after 8 years you will do better. So I don't suppose he typed something. My only point on which I capitalize all my arguments are this. Jammeh voluntarily, without any use of force, accepted defeat. And he did say that Barrow should come, that he will facilitate transition. The record is there. The problem now started at the very point that the Electoral Commission came up with the impression that there was wrong computations, which now increased the number of votes for Jammeh.
Okay, Professor Akintaiwa, thank you. We've got quite a number of tweets speaking to the issue, situation in the Gambia. We'll quickly like to take that before we get on to Guinea-Bissau. And Mike Anyako has tweeted, United Nations must declare Gambia a pariah state if the defeated president refuses to step down with attendant economic sanctions.
And then we have this tweet from Mohammed Usman. Yahya Jammeh should tread the path of peace and emulate former President Jonathan of Nigeria. And
Sani Michael Omakuji tweets, Yahya Jammeh is a disgrace to African leaders.
And he has another tweet. Yahya Jammeh is invoking the wrath of God and that of the majority of the Gambians on himself. After 22 years in power, what else does he want?
And this is simply Vince. And Vince tweets, why won't he do so? I guess he's referring to President Jammeh. All they need to do is peaceful transition of power to the newly elected government for the welfare of the masses.
Muhammad Abdullahi, the president of Gambia, Yahya Jammeh, should step down to avoid violence in his country.
And SMB Johnson tweets, despite the issue of sit-tight syndrome in Africa, in ECOWAS AU mediation, objectivity and not partisanship should be embraced.
Festus Akimboyewa has this tweet. The world knows that Yahya Jammeh is the world's most eccentric and ruthless leader. ECOWAS, AU, UN are right to warn him of strong sanctions.
And Oscar Esosa Edegbe tweets, the world's not interested in the Gambia and President Jammeh knows this, hence his posturing. The ball is now in ECOWAS court.
Abdulaziz Mayowa has this tweet. I believe he has no legitimate complaints. He should have rejected the election result as it was released, not days after.
All right, Chibuzo Everestus tweets, if the results of generation elections was not initially correct, when the recounting was done, was the party agents of Yahya there?
And another tweet again from SMB Johnson. The frenzied call for removal of long-serving African leaders may be making electoral processes vulnerable to undemocratic manipulations.
Well, Kingsley, just to respond to Chibuzo's question, the commissioner here just answered your question. She did say that all the party agents were there, including those, of course, from Yahya's party. Now, Chibuzo again has a second tweet. Jammeh's party agents should be there before the recounting and correction to make it more transparent and legitimate. I've just told you that was the case. And finally, Festus Akimboyewa tweet, I applaud ECOWAS, AU, UN for early intervention in the Gambia's political crisis. Gambians are waiting for the manifestation of their new government. And that ends the tweets for now. Leslie?
All right, those are the tweets that we are taking in the meantime, as Claire has just indicated. The other leg of our discussion centers on Guinea-Bissau. For 4 years, the country has been, as it were, in a state of stasis. Commissioner, what is going on?
Yes, for 4 years, ECOWAS had been fully engaged in Guinea-Bissau. And we seem to have seen a very strong push. Now, before then, of course, there were interventions by ECOWAS. We sent special envoys there in the person of President Olusegun Obasanjo, who had been engaging the parties on behalf of ECOWAS and, of course, on behalf of our President, President Muhammadu Buhari. But recently, the mediator, who had been there also for some time now, engaged all the political parties. We reached a 6-point agenda, and thereafter a 10-point action plan to achieve the agenda that we have. So we are hopeful that with the appointment of the new Prime Minister and the formulation of the government by the new Prime Minister just a few days ago, that maybe we're seeing some light ahead of the tunnel. The problem now is getting the PAIGC, which has been the government in power, to really buy into this current government. Already few members of them have agreed to join, but we're still waiting for about the 15 dissident PAIG members to go in to join the government and, of course, for the parliament to begin its activities and vote a program for that country. You know, it has been without a government program now for about 2 years, and the population is suffering. So we hope now that at least we can see some progress.
Okay, but so some people have actually pointed accusing fingers at ECOWAS. You know, they say that ECOWAS just sits and watches these African leaders, do as they will, and by the time they, get into action, it's almost becoming getting out of hand. Did ECOWAS intervene in the Guinea-Bissau crisis too late?
No. It didn't. It's been fully engaging with all the actors there. Don't forget that we have our forces there, the ECOWAS standby force, which we call ECOMIB. They've been there for about some years now, and we've been engaging with the political actors. It's just to get them to agree. It's an ongoing process.
Why is it apparently intractable to get them to agree?
That's what we should ask the actors themselves. Why have you not agreed? And that is what we keep on asking them. The President Salif herself went there, our chairperson. She went there and spoke with them. At least the results of the push that ECOWAS has been having is what led to this appointment of this new Prime Minister, which is the fourth within the last 2 years.
So what was the basis of the 10-point roadmap agenda, that was drawn? And there was also a Conakry agreement.
The Conakry agreement is the 6-point agenda, which is the basis, which calls for dialogue, formation of an all-inclusive government, the DDR, which is Security Sector Reform Program, and of course the Economic Development Program. The 10-point agenda is the one that expatiates the 6 points agenda and gives it it's like a work plan for the 6-point agenda.
Have they been met? Are they being met?
Well, it's just been adopted. We are working towards that.
Ambassador Keshi, I mean, this is, again, I can see you've been smiling. 4 years, apparently, I mean, the country is in a state of arrested development right now. But what exactly can be done? Could ECOWAS have acted otherwise in terms of seeking to fast-track the resolution process, you know, for whatever disagreements there are amongst the key actors in the country?
You did say that I was smiling when the commissioner was speaking, because you are dealing with 4 years. I'm looking back to how many times we've gone through this in Guinea-Bissau. And I think that because of its small size, because it's away from the global radar, most of us don't realize that Guinea-Bissau is becoming the sick man of not just this region, but the continent. As far back as 2009, 2010, along with ECOWAS, this country intervened in so many ways to stabilize the country. Before then, we've even done that. So anybody who now says ECOWAS did not intervene early enough probably doesn't know what, you know, ECOWAS has been doing. They've been doing so many things to try to stabilize that, you know, that country. To the extent that when I got this invitation and then they included Guinea-Bissau, my first reaction was to say, listen, maybe we should just do what the Bible said. Jesus said, listen, if you go to a place and they refuse to listen to you, dust your and leave. Just leave them to themselves. Maybe somewhere along the line that, you know, they will come to their senses. Because both ECOWAS, this country in particular, Nigeria, and I know, and the international community, spent so much in terms of financial resources to try to stabilize that country. At some point, the international community led by Nigeria actually had to mobilize the resources to pay the military in order to, you know, how many conferences, madam, have you held to ensure that peace reigns in that country? But somehow, you know, maybe because of its poverty, its underdevelopment, and so many other things, that time will not allow us to discuss. I don't think that the leaders, you know, are serious. So the best we should expect is to hope that the new 10-point agenda, that they'll be reasonable enough to actually want to make it work. Because honestly, the much I know of Guinea-Bissau, I don't know what else anybody can do at this point in time to help them out. They have to decide at some point that they need to help themselves out.
All right, thank you, Ambassador Jokeshi. Professor Bella Akintayewa, what's your reading of the situation in Guinea-Bissau? We'd just like your viewpoint very briefly so that we can get on with our other subject for discussion.
Much. If a doctor is seeking to treat and cure an ailment, if the diagnosis is wrong, then you can expect that there will be complication of the problem. If the ECOWAS has been with this problem without any foreseeable solution in sight, it is because of wrong diagnosis or a missing point, and I will just draw your attention to the missing point. I quite agree in part with the submission of Ambassador Keshi. The problem started long time ago. Since the independence of Guinea-Bissau, it has been coup upon coup, counter coup. All right? So the problem has been there. And there's no disputing the fact that Nigeria has played very constructive roles there, and particularly OBJ. But the missing point is this. It is on record, that the Lusophone organization, I mean the Portuguese-speaking group of countries, they have never liked the idea of extra Lusophone intervention in dealing with the problem of Guinea-Bissau. Even when they are part of it, there are suspicions there. It is only when we are able to reconcile the conflicting interests of the ECOWAS on the one hand with the Lusophones led by Portugal, it is then we are able, all right, likely to find an enduring solution to that. You can have many prime ministers, you can have many governments, but the interests are very, very conflicting in the Guinea-Bissau. Research is needed to go along with this.
Professor Bola Akintaye, we indicated that we are pressed for time. I wanted to just, this is not a question, but this is a comment. I'm thanking you already for being with us. If you say that the Lusophone countries in Africa, there are about 5 of them, Mozambique, Angola, then you also have Equatorial Guinea or so. But how did Mozambique resolve its own civil war? How did Angola resolve it? The Cubans were involved. It wasn't part of the role of Portugal to get those crises resolved. But that's a discussion for another day. Professor Bola Akintaye, former Director General, Nigeria Institute of International Affairs, thank you for your insights in our discussion this morning. All right, Mr. Cape Verde, while listing the Lusophone countries. And then we also would like to thank Ambassador Joe Keshi. Ambassador Joe Keshi, let's hope that Guinea-Bissau isn't a hopeless cause, and at some point they are able to resolve themselves.
I hope so.
Ambassador Keshi, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, we also would like to thank Hajia Halima Ahmad, is the Commissioner in charge of Political Affairs, Peace and Security for ECOWAS. Hajia, pleasure that you were part of our discussion this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll be discussing the rollover of the digital switchover in the Federal Capital Territory. That's here in Abuja, which is today, December 22nd.
My community have asked me to be the chairman of their emergency luncheon.
How much of money are you carrying to village? You speak English, you know drop money.
Give us 100 million naira. Oh. If you don't have it, go back. Oh.
Flash, what is the name of your village?
Obama, something like that.
Obama is what you're calling Obama, a lost cause.
This week on your award-winning comedy series, Professor John Bull, starring Kanayo Okanayo, Mercy Johnson, Queen Wokoye, Funky Malam, Ime Bishop.
I just came in from USA, United States of Aba.
If you was gave me money to palm my head, I was grief for you.
Palm your head.
I was needed to look beautifully. This is Christmas.
I don't have money to palm your head.
Professor John Bull, this Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. on NTA Network, International, and Star Times.
Over and out.
Welcome to the new speed of life.
It's that time of the year when we appreciate all those that meant so much to us. Our sponsors, our clients, government at all levels, corporate bodies, advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups, political parties, business, and above all, you, our esteemed viewer. Together, we made 2016 great. Together, we shall make 2017 even greater. That's why we say thank you. Merry Christmas and prosperous New Year.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
All right, welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live from Africa's largest TV network, that's the NTA. And of course, I'm sure you do know that in a few hours from now, maybe in an hour or so, the official digital switch on will, of course, happen here in Abuja. And that's the topic we're about to discuss. Let me quickly welcome to our studio, not for the first time, Engineer Rotimi Salami, and he is General Manager, Integrated Television Services, ITS. Engineer Salami, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
We also have with us Mr. Maxwell Loko, and he is MD, NTA TV Enterprises. Mr. Loko, thank you very much for coming.
Welcome.
All right, so let's begin with Engineer Rotimi Salami. We've had you on the program in the past, when, of course, there was the rollout to Jos, that's the Plateau State capital. So today is the turn of the Federal Capital Territory. What do television viewers in the Federal Capital Territory stand to benefit from all of this, and how would they notice that, in fact, there has been a rollover, as it were, to the digital platform?
The most pronounced of the benefits is the multiplicity in choices. There will be about 30 channels available on the platform. So they will start by procuring the set-top box, which is available all over the place at 1,500. So that is the first. Then the second is that the quality of the signals, both video and audio, very distinct on the platform. Then there is interactivity. You are able to interact with the content providers, and there will be information services also on the platform. So those are things that most of our viewers will be experiencing for the first time, and free too.
When you say the set-top boxes are available all over the place, where can they be purchased, or where can they be taken, assuming they are being given for free?
They are being hawked around the city. You have people carrying them, wanting them to as you drive past, particularly in the Yaya, Maraba axis, and several other bus stops. But an organization known as CCNL is responsible for distributing these set-top boxes.
So I hope there are no fake yet. No fake ones here.
They are so clearly marked. You will see Free TV logo on them. You see the price on them. Besides, don't go buying what has not been authenticated, because there is this conditional access on them. The system had to be activated first for you to be able to receive the signals. So if you don't go buy, if you go buying whatever they present to you as set-top box for the Free TV, you'll be wasting and losing your money.
How do you distinguish the set-top box for what you're going to be using for the digital era from other boxes that you have, other decoder or otherwise, for somebody who is not technically savvy?
These things, you have the inscription of Free TV. It is being distributed courtesy of NBC. So all these markings are there to tell you it is specifically for this project. Exactly. So there's no difference between this set-top box and the usual decoders we know. What the stance is as that it will only scan our own signals, as signals meant for the DSO project. There is an idea in that makes it do that. Then the digital, the conditional access on the box makes it distinct that any other box cannot be activated to work on the platform except this set of boxes. So it is very important you get the right thing.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Loko here. Mr. Loko, I'd like for you to give us, paint for us a vivid picture for household end viewers in Abuja. What is likely to happen today as the digital switch on is effected?
Okay, let me start by saying that the launch of digital TV in Abuja today marks a very significant milestone in our journey towards analog to digital switchover. And significantly, people will begin to experience television in a manner they've never experienced before. What that means simply is that channels that you used to watch differently will now be bundled in a box, and you watch them, like Engineer Salami say, crisp clear. For now, only 30 channels, because of limited space in the multiplex of the signal distributor, will be available, and it's categorized into national, regional, and local. So the national, of course, means that you can watch those channels wherever you are in Nigeria. The regional will be particular regions of Nigeria, and the local will be for those in that city. Taking Abuja, for example, the local channel, maybe for instance NTA channel 5 Abuja, which you cannot see beyond Abuja. But the other NTA channels that will be on the national network, for instance, the NTA News 24, the NTA Sports, and the NTA Parliament. Wherever you are in Nigeria, you watch that one. So that is going to be the new experience.
Okay, I assume I'm an end user, end viewer in my home right now.
Yeah.
And I do not have the setup. Now, I also like you to clarify that because we have people call it setup or set top.
Yeah.
So we don't know which is which.
It's actually set top.
Set top.
Spelled T-O-P.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
Not
so not
the
set
box
top.
is sitting on top of the box. Yes.
Okay. So those end users without the set top boxes, would they also experience this crispy, hide the images we're talking about?
No, they can't.
So you must have
the set-top box. The only condition to avoid the set-top box, so to say, is you must have a digital TV. But I bet you 98% of the TV sets we have in our homes in Nigeria are not digital. So if you have a digital tuner TV that has an inbuilt tuner, then you don't need a set-top box.
Even the flat screen TVs are not digital?
They are not digital. They may just look fanciful and all that, but they are not digital. Digital TV, it depends on what is built inside, not how it looks.
The functionality.
The functionality of the TV. But
Mr. Loco, explain this. What is the compatibility between the set-top box that is dedicated to this digital switchover or rollover or roll-on, and the regular decoders that we get, either from StarTimes or from DSTV or MultiChoice or some others? What is the compatibility? If you have any of StarTimes, do you still need the digital switchover decoder?
For now, like Engineer Salami said, there's really no major difference. Now, the fact that this one is specifically for digital terrestrial television is very different from the satellite, like we've always known. But talking about StarTimes is digital terrestrial pay television, even though they've been offering some free to air channels, before this day. So basically, if you have the StarTimes set-top boxes, but because StarTimes is not licensed to provide free TV, you may not be able to access this free TV, except if you have the NBC's free TV set-top boxes, which will access these signals. Until such a time, maybe as we move on, if the regulators deem it fit that maybe the other pay DTT, which is the pay digital television platforms like the StarTimes, are empowered or enabled or licensed to also transmit free TV, they may just concentrate only on provision of pay TV. So that is basically the difference. But we must emphasize that the set-top boxes that will be on sale is free TV. We call it free TV because you are not going to pay subscription. So the cost will be the one-off cost of acquiring the set-top box. So that is mainly the difference. If you have that, month in, month out, you don't pay any subscription.
Okay, Mr. Luko,
and you watch those 30 channels free.
We have to cut a final question for Engineer Salami. Engineer Salami, now you do know that a lot of homes in the villages, rural areas, receive NTA signals, right in their, living rooms. Yes. So what is the place of NTA in this whole switch on?
In the new digital broadcast ecosystems, there are signal distributors, which we are, ITS and Pinnacle. There are content providers, which NTA now becomes, and other television practitioners, broadcast practitioners. So it's quietly significantly distinguishes the role of each and everybody player in the system. You have signal distributors, you have content aggregators, you have content providers. So NTA as of today is a content provider on the digital broadcast ecosystem.
So what will be doing? Just providing the content?
Compelling content, because the platform is all the same. With the press of button, you change to the other station. So for you to attract and sustain viewership on your channel, your content must be compelling. And please, I want to add, the issue of set-top box. It is important that everybody has, because now we are doing dual illumination, analog broadcast, simultaneously with digital broadcast. In the not too distance,
we don't have yet.
Yes, I'm telling you.
Are you going to give us?
You buy 1,500 naira. So it is important you get, because when analog switch off is attained, you'll be completely cut off.
All right, fine. But just the point you made about where the set-top boxes are available, you said in Yaya along the traffic.
This is all over the place. I'm just saying the availability is brought down to everybody. That's why it's at the bus stop.
More widespread. All right, fine. But Mr. Loco, one more time. What kind of channels should viewers expect the NTA to upload on these various platforms?
Yeah.
Is it 30 channels, for instance, in the FCT? How many of those channels will NTA have, considering the multiplicity of its assets?
Yes, NTA has been granted space for 4 channels, 3 of which will be national. That is NTA Sports, NTA News 24, and NTA Parliament. Then the 4th one will be the local NTA, which is the NTA Channel 5 Abuja. It may interest a lot of people to know that amongst these program listings, NTA Parliament, for example, is an initiative which gives viewers, first-hand information on the parliamentary processes and legislation and policy formulation from the local government council to the state houses of assembly and the National Assembly. And the sports, we know, has been on the digital platform, but they are being positioned now to provide free-to-air channels for our teaming sports lovers. And of course, NTA News 24 will be the NTA's flagship program content provider on the free TV platform.
All right, go ahead, Kessie.
All right, that's Max Loco is Managing Director, NTA TV Enterprises. Thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you very much.
We also would like to thank Engineer Rotimi Salami, his GM, ITS. ITS stands for Integrated Television Services. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on now to sports. As one of our companion segments, the Nigeria Professional Football League clubs